Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Tom.
And I'm Irving.
And this is the Park Bench.
With Dr. Irving Finkel.
Welcome.
Don't be so formal. This is a very serious occasion, but no formality is necessary. I'm going to teach you guys how to write cuneiform writing, okay? You have to pay attention, you have to keep up. We're not repeating anything at all.
And if we do, I'll edit it out. Also, could you briefly introduce yourself and explain why you are qualified to teach us this?
Yeah. My name is Dr. Irving Finkel. I'm a curator in this museum, and I am one of those people who reads cuneiform writing, and we have 130,000 tablets in our collection, and we need more people to come and read them, and it's the most interesting writing system in the world, and it's the oldest writing system in the world.
Did you say 100? The British Museum has 130,000?
Behind that very wall.
Right.
In little boxes, all waiting for young scholars to dedicate their lives for this monkish work.
What percentage of them do people know what they say?
Very tricky question. I would say some know a bit about some of them, and some don't know anything about any of them, and we know a little bit about most of them. Very broad.
No,
very
good answer. I like that answer.
Yes, I used to be in politics. Right. So this is the first thing. This is a real tablet. Okay.
Oh wow.
This doesn't belong to the museum. Actually, it belongs to somebody else. I borrowed it. So it's a school tablet. It's round, and you can see there's writing here.
Nick,
right?
could you come in and get this is Nick, who is our camera op from the museum today. If you want to come around the back here and get a close up on this.
You're not supposed to read over people's shoulders, you know?
Yes, it's very rude.
Okay, so this is it. These signs, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, they're a school exercise, and you can probably already see, since you're an advanced student, that this sign is the same.
Yep.
Okay, so this writing is called cuneiform. This marvellous book I just happen to have here has this very word as a title, full of lovely photographs and a bargain at a very cheap price. But leaving that aside, this cuneum, cuneos is the Latin for wedge, and this is the point, because all this writing is not like we do with a pencil on a piece of paper, but it's impressing, or like printing, into the face of the clay with a stylus. So you displace the clay to make the signs. So it's actually, as you obviously now realise, a perfectly straightforward matter. So in this writing there are only 3 components. Okay, there's one upright wedge, like so. There's one horizontal wedge, like so, and there's one diagonal wedge, like so.
So is this significantly, because this looks massively complicated when you draw it,
but that's a combination of just 3 things to
and
make
that's just
everything.
essentially, I don't use the word whacking, but it's tapping the clay in the right way.
Well, in point of fact, as I'll show you in a moment, when you have to do it yourself, you just press your stylus into the clay gently and displace the surface to make these shapes, and I'll show you how to do it.
Right.
But you see, the thing is, there are hundreds and hundreds of signs. And what we've got here is a cuneiform code chart, which you can take home and make into a t-shirt if you like, with arranged, as it were, after our alphabet, these signs in a retrievable way. Now, the crucial thing is that all the signs are syllabic.
Right.
They never thought of the alphabet. So, for example, if you wanted to write the word banana in cuneiform, I don't know if you ever had that urge, but if you wanted to, what you would need to do is to find on this chart the sign ba and the sign na and the sign na, write them in sequence, and then you, in your mind, push them together and it spells the word.
It's a syllabary,
It's a syllabary.
kanji?
Like that, only much more interesting, much more elegant, and a lot older.
Right.
So the thing is this, if you go to school, you have to learn the hard way, you have to learn the signs bit by bit. If you take it up now, which I hope you will as of tomorrow, you need approximately 6 years of dedicated work to master the entire script. But on one simple episode like this, you can get the hang of it. So let's, for example, assume that one of you had a resounding, complicated, deep, phonetically fascinating name like
Matt?
Excellent example. So what we have here, is that the conventional spelling?
It's got another T on the end of it.
Okay,
but
first point is that spelling is nonsense.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
this name wouldn't be any different if we didn't have this.
Exactly.
So from now on you can forget wasting your time by rumbling the key. So we have a thing which sounds like Matt, right?
I'm going to pull this camera down to get a close-up on this, if that's okay. So I'm not quite sure we're going to get your handwriting in with the clarity we need here.
It will be tragic.
So yeah, if we can pull the top camera down here. There we go.
Ooh.
I feel all fun.
That's some old school zoom right there.
Yeah.
So our task now is to write this word Matt using this script. So now we've got the hang of it, we have to find the M row, which is those of us who know the alphabet very quickly. Marvellous. So we're going to spell it like this. We need the syllable ma and the syllable at. Okay?
Okay.
So this is marked. So you have one vertical wedge and 1, 2, 3 horizontals.
Okay.
And then we find at. You're good on the alphabet now, aren't you? So you want to have a go?
Down here.
Well, look at that. Unerring speed. Okay, so
To be fair, I just worked it out because I figured what was going to happen next.
you're way ahead of me. I don't know. So this one ends, as you see, in one final vertical. It has 3, so it looks rather like
So
mark
it's very similar
at
apart
this
from
point,
2 extra
but
bits.
this
in
is the
front of
crucial point. It has 2 at the front.
Now, how can you tell the difference between that vertical and that horizontal? You've got the long stroke there,
It's a long stroke
but
there.
that bit in the middle is not one long stroke. It's the side effect of having 3 horizontal ones next to each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the point is, when the stylus, which used to be a reed, was impressed into the surface of the clay, it displaced the clay, and the end of the stylus left a kind of corner in the clay, so that gives it this shape. You will see
Right.
when you do it, no problem. So I suppose just to keep the class happy, we do need another name. So is there anybody here who's got their own name they'd like to share with
a
us?
simple name that could be Tom.
Tom's
Tom
nice.
would be
Ah,
a
now
name,
you
yeah.
see, this is a problem.
Ah.
This is a problem. as you
This
might be
is,
aware.
the same problem I had in Inuktitut when I
Yes.
went up to Canada.
Is there no
Because there is
O vowel?
no O vowel.
So you're alert to this difference.
I have to be either Tam
or Tom.
or Tim or Ten. You can choose.
We went with Tam, I think.
Well,
there,
we don't want to
because
tread in
it's-
their
No,
path.
That's how an American would say
because
it.
it was
It's
because it was
sort of
close,
thing,
because there's
yeah.
at least some accent in the world that would pronounce that as Tam as opposed to Tum, which is like Birmingham. So
Yes. Well, I think
Sorry,
it's a
Birmingham.
matter for a man's personal choice. Really. So,
let's go with Tam. Let's go with Tam.
Okay, Tam is rather fine. So, would you like to find the Tam sign on
There.
it? What a team of boys!
Now, is there-
Okay, now notice here that you've got 3.
Oh,
I don't want
blimey.
any boasting or any big-headedness. So we're going to write ta and then am. Okay.
Yep.
So ta is 1.
So is there
2,
any pattern
3.
here? Is there any pattern between at and as and am? Or
No.
between?
All
They're
the signs have their origin, which is unrelated one to the other, but they end up in this format. But the historical explanation for each of the signs is different because they began as pictures.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and the process of taking a simple child's drawing, say, of a foot, which a child would recognise now, into a cuneiform sign, the process of adjusting it worked differently in each case. So the signs end up looking like this, but historically they're all realistic.
So this is a simplification of something that was more complicated, so the lines are copying that rather than having any formal layout based
Well,
on the original.
you have a thing that looks like this,
Yeah.
which, any ideas?
Bird. Let's go with bird.
Yes. It's so stimulating, you know, for
Learning.
someone in my position to meet this sort of intelligence. Well, indeed, you are absolutely right. Well, the thing is, this is, in the old days, say 3000 BC, and you wanted to talk about birds, because that's what boys did in those days, you would draw a realistic bird. And in due course, that's to say, over perhaps 1,000 years, the sign ended up like this. So it's made of wedges. So somehow or other, I mean, we know about it, it's a very complicated thing in each case, but this led to that.
Okay.
That's how it worked.
Because
So
it's
would-
quicker to write that than it is to draw a bird.
Well, it is, and there's also this other problem, as you know from your recent experiments with plasticine, that if you're trying to draw a face on plasticine, the point that you draw with tends to gather,
Yeah.
and when you have a curve, it's most destructive.
Yeah.
So impressing gives a much sharper and neater thing. So you see, if we're going to persist with this name, ta and am is here.
Oh, good grief.
You've got a nice
I've
issue on
Got the
there.
complicated one, haven't I?
Relax. Okay, it's no problem. You've got 2 horizontals, as we already know about.
Yep.
And then you've got 4 of these diagonals. So there's one
Okay.
big one, comme ça, and then 3 resting on top.
I'm going to keep my head out of the shadow there. Okay.
See?
Right.
So
yeah.
in fact, your am is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you see the principle. It's not so
And I was going to say
complicated.
that's really complicated. If you consider how many strokes I have to, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 in English to write those letters.
Yes.
So-
So it's a long time since I've done any, but I know what you mean. Now,
It seems a lot more complicated because I'm not used to the system.
I think what we need to do now is to see how far you absorb this crucial matter.
right.
Okay.
So this is the thing. Let me just demonstrate once more that all of these signs have these 3 components like so. So if you take this one, it has 1 horizontal and 1 diagonal.
Yep.
This one has 4 diagonals, 2 horizontals, and 3 vertical. Just be grateful.
Yep.
That's not you. So you can perhaps appreciate that if you have your clay and you have your stylus and you know how to produce these 3 different shapes, you can write anything. Okay. So I think Chrissy made some rather tasty looking. Yes, there they are, made. In fact, prepared.
Thank you very much, Chrissy.
They're very fine, actually. Very fine. Sort of, now, 1800 BC kind of profile. And we also need some styly. What we use by preference is these popsicle sticks, as they call them in America.
As they call them in America,
yes,
yeah.
they do. You can have a long one or a short one.
I'm going to go for a long one.
Yes, I knew that one. Well, I don't mind drawing the short straw.
Hey.
It's not bad, is it really? Okay, so this is the thing. If you take your stylus and hold it...
I'm starting to keep that just there. There we go.
Is that comfortable?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so you have your... you are both right-handed, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, you have to write with the sharp end. Okay, because you're going to make use of this right angle. So you have the left-hand edge and the top edge, which have a right angle where they meet.
Okay.
So when you hold the stylus, hold it comfortably but firmly with about an inch free between the finger and the thumb.
Okay.
In this position, not like a pencil.
Not like a pencil. So not that, but that.
Nicely put.
Okay.
So the simple principle is this: if you take this stylus and you apply it to the clay, if you apply it totally flat, nothing happens. But if you do it in this way, that the right edge drops into the clay, it displaces it, and you end up. This is poetry to my ear. But you see, you have a wonderful long tail and this diagonal head left by the corner. Look at this.
I did one.
Go on, see if you can.
All right, so you just...
Men.
Okay.
Holy smokes. Now, obviously, it's going to be clear to you that the next step is to produce a horizontal. So you simply turn this through...
90.
How many is that?
90.
90 degrees. And again, you apply that lower edge and press it in and displace the clay, and you will have a horizontal. So not
Nick, do you want to come around again?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You see? You see how easy it is?
Yeah.
Then the third thing is, we have to make a diagonal. So this is slightly more tricky. If you press this into your hand, the corner, the point, hurts. If you press it a long way, you get a splinter, and then you gradually bleed to death. So
Let's not do that.
There's no need to go that far. But if you take the corner, the sharp bit, and put it in, apply it to the clay, you will displace one at an angle. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So, if you wanted to do something like this am,
Yep.
starting from scratch, we have 2 horizontals, 1, 2. Then it's easier if you do the big diagonal here, where there's a bit of room. And then you want to do these 3, so you do with smaller strikes of the stylus, you produce this.
So for am, it would be
2 horizontals.
2 horizontals.
Right. 1
large diagonal.
comfortable diagonal, and then
1, 2, 3. I mean, I'm not. It's as a first attempt, it doesn't quite match the sign, but I'll take that.
It's recognisable. If a Babylonian were to be strolling along here, he would say, am.
I've made a small one.
You see, the bigger the stylus, the smaller the sign.
It's compensates.
Exactly. Actually, they're both really very good, considering you are total beginners with 6 years ahead of you. I think you've done rather well.
So I can write the rest of my name now
you
if I
can
put,
write
if I put
whatever
the T.
you
And the
fancy.
T was that one, which is 3 vertical.
Yeah. Where is it? Notice that this horizontal goes all the way under. It doesn't stop.
Right.
When you write ma, you have 1, and then 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
When you do that thing of ta, you have to have a long vertical and then a short one on top.
Okay.
A man of your attainments?
I'll see what I can do.
No problem.
So I'm going to try and write my name. Were these used for other things than syllables, by the way? Is this like some languages where you can also have them represent words?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that is actually how it. That's actually how it started off. They first had one sign for a thing, like tree or king.
Oh,
that's how it began. And then they realised that that wasn't usable to express language, so those same signs were given extra uses, so you could either do one sign for a thing or you could write syllabically. So they had both tools at once. Sorry, I was in your way there.
No, that's quite all right. I'm not quite sure I've got that.
I noticed this goes over the...
Yes.
And I have to say that the point about school in Babylonia, as we know, that attention among pupils was guaranteed by applications of a large ash stick. Since this is your first...
And we have here today.
I only have to press this secret buzzer under the table and somebody will bring it. But
So what have I got wrong there?
You haven't got anything wrong, really. Where is this tar?
Just
on
there,
our
just
master sheet. Yes, these two should stop and not go through. So that
right.
one is beautiful. That's a little bit enthusiastic.
That's crossed over. Okay, so you have to get the angle right.
So I've got Matt there, I think.
You have. Now you'll notice also that with this upper wedge here, it goes soaring up into the air like a television aerial. Nothing wrong with that, but the ideal conception of a wedge is that the head is more or less the same height above and below the shaft.
So I'm doing it too flat, so if I do it more cornery, then it...
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you something else about this bit. When you wrote a tablet as a proper scholar or a businessman's assistant or something like that, they all had a sense of calligraphy. They didn't just do it. So one of the crucial points was that when you wrote a sequence of signs, when one sign ends, it just meets the next, so it flows.
It's essentially joined up writing.
It's joined up writing. That's precisely the point. And
Did they do it left to right?
They do it left to right, but I don't think the left hand is inert and the right hand does all the work, because sometimes there's a feeling you kind of sculpt the signs and it pushes up to meet it. And you can do all sorts of subtle, delicate things that you wouldn't think were possible.
In the same way you can with calligraphy and a fountain pen.
It's analogous. It's a form of calligraphy, I think. And the marvellous thing about all this stuff is that when they finish them, writing their business documents or love letters or hymns or history or whatever they wrote, because they wrote everything, then the stuff is almost indestructible, because in Iraq, where all this happened, the sun was so warm all the time, and if you leave your tablet out on the wall, the clay becomes safe to handle. And then once it's in the ground, there's destruction, or they get buried, or they're just there.
Am I right in thinking the main reason we have so many tablets now is by accident, just because they dried in the sun and someone left them because they didn't want them anymore?
No, well, they kept in normal life, things get lost, they get buried, they get destroyed and broken, but they only seldom fired them. I mean, they knew how to fire a tablet so it wouldn't crack. They knew about all that kiln work, but normally speaking, a normal domestic tablet would just dry and people could handle it. But in the ground, even if they're not fired, even if they are wet still for 3,000 or 4,000 years, when they come out, they are perfectly preserved. So that's how.
So like you can laminate paper, but you wouldn't do it for everyday life.
Yeah, exactly.
But it'll biodegrade if it's.
Some librarians like to laminate the readers, of course. But you see that when you look at this, for example, if you look at a normal tablet, a bit of writing, it's fine. It looks, at first glance, doesn't look like real writing at all. Goodness me, no. It looks terribly small, but you can see, perhaps after this exhaustive training, that all these signs are made up in the same way of verticals and diagonals and so forth. So a professional scribe would write very neatly, like a newspaper, something of this kind. And when you are completely untutored, like most of the people in the world so far, people say, well, which way up to go? But now, of course, you'll be able to go out into the world, explain this to people, help them over difficult readings, all that sort of thing, which, of course, the seriologists have to do on a daily map. You know, you're in the bus queue, someone says, you know, I've got this Middle Babylonian tablet. You never know what to do with it. So it's important to realise your newfound status.
Well, thank you very much. You should plug the Kickstarter that you're doing.
Oh, that's
why you're here. I've spotted Chrissy and this is going. You should remember the.
Yes, well, actually, I was standing on your foot. I'm surprised you didn't notice it. I was going Kickstarter. This is something else. Forget all that. This is something really remarkable. This is a lump of stone.
Okay.
Okay, and you can see now, can you not, that it is made up, the face here, of thousands of wedges. Exactly the same as small ones, big ones, as we've been doing, right? This is a lump of stone that's broken naturally.
Oh.
In fact, it was a lug on a water vessel, which was very heavy, and eventually it sheared off, and you have nature, the hand of nature, imitating cuneiform writing. It's a very alarming matter when we had to rely on the Babylonians. But the thing is this, some person brought this once to me and said, can you read this? And I looked at it, couldn't find a word. and then I realised it was a natural thing. It's just a kind of flute that it breaks in this way. So I had this idea, what would have happened in Assyria? The kind of Syrian library in the 7th century, when they were very interested in old writing. If somebody had dug this up in a ditch in Iraq, taken it to Nineveh and showed it to the king would like, fantastic! Fallen from heaven, must be the most important. What does it say? What does it say, man? I'm paying you £100 a week. The guy wouldn't be able to read it. And it seemed to me that the person who personified scholarship and learning, who worked for the king, the moment this happened, he would realise that all their knowledge, all the tradition, all their scholarship, all their learning would be worth nothing, because the first time a real message from the gods arrives, he couldn't read it. So this is an interesting situation. The whole of their science would go. So it seems to me what would happen is this guy would have to get this stone back and kill everybody who'd ever seen it. So I had this other idea at the same time.
I mean, we laughed at that, but at the same time,
he's like that.
Oh.
I was just about to say that, as far as I can see, there must have been psychopaths in antiquity as there are today. You know, it's one of those things people learn at school and go on to practice as an adult now, and it was then. Good, healthy psychopathy. So
he says quietly impressing things into his
I find it makes me feel more relaxed if I just do a little bit. But the thing is this, in antiquity, there were no police officers and there was no sense of clues. So if you had a very intelligent person who needed to do a sequence of murders in order to cover something, no one would go looking for footprints and, I think this looks like a psychological type. They could do it, if they were clever, unchecked. So we have this stone, which has provoked a kind of thing vested in the real Mesopotamia, about the magicians and the demons and all that, with this madman let loose in the world in order to follow this to its origin. And it's a horror story of unbearable proposition. Grown men have been known to leap out of bed and go down and make hot chocolate. That sort of thing. And that is the book to which you so delicately alluded.
It felt a little bit like being on a talk show there. Do you want to plug the?
Yes. There isn't anything else we need to plug.
Previous work there.
So where do I send the check after that? Anyway, the thing is this: it's a horrible story. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. You probably have. That you're sitting in front of a camera, somebody asks you something, and out comes this reasoned, intelligent narrative that you've never thought about the subject before. You ever had that? Someone presses a button.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. This whole story, I'm sitting like an amanuensis, and when I read it, it was horrible. It is very, very frightening. So I recommend all people in Britain to buy 3 copies of this book, and in order to do that, they have to, what was it called?
Kickstarter.
It's very nice of you to bring it up, but actually it's a remarkable thing, because they would have gone insane with what to do with it. And in point of fact, among all those wedges, there are 1 or 2 combinations which are real. It makes the sign truth.
So, ducking underneath the camera
should we remove the camera now, if you would, please?
There we go. There is a link to that in the description below this video. Click on the link to find out more, as always. And there's one thing I'm learning, and that's that if time machines exist, I don't want you to have one, because it seems like you might have ulterior motives.
Okay, so tomorrow, same time, same place, on the bench. We carry on. Lesson 2.
Today, same time. You've got a time machine, apparently.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and teaching me to write my name in Cuneiform.
This is lovely.
Since you've been so good, I think you can take them home.
Oh, thank you.
Yay, free toy.
Thank you so much.
It's a big coincidence running into, I was just walking here with a couple of bits of clay, and all of a sudden, I'm sure that's that guy on the game.
I did a Royal Game of Earth with you.
It was you, wasn't it? Yes, I thought
it was.
as much. Yes.
And there just happened to be this, trestle table and bench just set up.
And camera equipment.
And folks from the British Museum here to help us film.
It's fate. It's fate.
Or a time machine.